Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back.
RX Radio episode. We don't keep track anymore.
No idea.
We're past that. You know who we are.
Whatever Lundy decides to number it,
Yeah, exactly.
it's kind of how I go with it.
Yeah. Today the four of us sit down. Fantastic. Matt Penny, you're a staple now. You've done enough of these where you're just part of the podcast. Add it to your resume.
It's a real fun, wholesome time.
It is. Even when it's not wholesome, it's fun.
It's even when it's not wholesome, it's still wholesome.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that. It's actually more fun when it's not wholesome.
Yeah.
But always a pleasure. Matt Penny, of course. James McIntosh. James there. Myself, me.
You, myself, and
I have a question for you guys before we get into it today. We'll go down the line. What sports have you guys played growing up in your life? Kind of what's your athletic experience? We'll start with you there.
Yeah. So the three main sports from probably 12 to 17 was football, wrestling, and track. I think some of the takeaways from those three, first off, track, you actually learn how to run. Like, interesting enough,
that is
a
interesting.
lot of people don't know how to actually run.
They just
and
fall.
You don't just falling forward. And
people running on the sidewalk is hilarious to me.
My
It's
God.
painful
Terrifies
yet
me.
hilarious.
And you know, it's funny because it's the most human thing that we do, and the thing that like literally separated us from everything else.
The rest of the animal
before
kingdom.
we could use the rest of our brains. Yeah.
Yep,
Just
we're
running,
so
and we're just
terrible
so
at it.
shit at it.
Yeah, I don't even do it because I know I'm so shit at it.
Well, and like another aspect I think with it not only just like in all of those embrace the suck of it, but always something interesting I looked at specifically with track because my events were the 4x1, 4x4, open 4x2, and high jump.
You were a fucking
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Whoa. High
Yeah.
jump.
Yeah.
He said high jump.
Yeah,
Bro, you're shorter than me.
I am.
And I could not do high
But
jump.
look how stout he is.
Think,
It
well,
generates
it's-
a lot
I
of
mean,
power.
That is power. Yeah. That is a power
To be
build.
fair, like I wasn't good at it. It's not like I was.
That's the answer.
That's all
there.
Mac needed to
Yeah,
hear.
that's all I needed.
That's
Yeah.
all
I was like,
I
okay,
needed.
I think the highest might have been 5'10", 5'11". In comparison, my
That sounds
senior
high.
year,
That's high, bro.
Yeah.
my
That's
senior
pretty
year,
high.
the person that won 3A hit 7 foot.
Imagine a 7-foot like basketball player and jumping clean
Yeah,
over.
dude.
It's impressive.
It's a long
You know what?
fall.
I was impressed with 5'10" until you said that.
Yeah,
5'10" is still pretty impressive.
Hey,
What can I
well,
jump over, like
and-
3'2"?
it's such a like that aspect of it. It's so weird because 3 years later, my brother's senior year, the winner got 6'1". So how drastic?
Damn. So it was
That
a
can be-
stud your year.
Yeah.
Like it was a stud.
Yeah, no chance. I didn't have a chance to
Yeah,
begin with, but
no, man.
but that's part of it is in the high jump, I don't have a huge vertical, but I know how to manipulate my body over a bar because I had good technique and understanding where that
You
was.
did the whippy thing.
Yeah.
When the right time to kick was and the approach to it.
That's a very
of
good point,
Using
yeah.
that curve, and that's something unique with like you'll see it a little bit in football with tackle, like a defensive tackle coming off the edge, but something unique to track, it emphasizes running a curve.
Yeah.
Where you don't really see that a lot of times, and like how to actually use that. It's kind of I always think of Talladega Nights, like slingshot engage.
The slingshot.
Using that
Shake
momentum
and bake,
because
baby.
Shake and bake.
because anybody that has run one of those events, you never pass on the curve. You're expending
Right.
a lot more energy. So it's being able to like utilize that to slingshot engage and carry the momentum, or learning how to kick. It's that finisher. It's whenever you know like where to preserve energy and then where to utilize it to finish strong, and making sure like being able to estimate that, being able to judge that. Kind of going from that, I think wrestling, you can speak to this, but it's a wonderful and terrible sport.
It absolutely is.
Like it's something unlike any other sport. There's a different type of mentality that comes to it. There's a different type of conditioning.
Wrestlers are insane.
Yeah, just every day you show up and hate your life, and you
And you
are
keep doing
willingly doing it every single day.
You subject yourself to that.
In ours we had 2-days. So
Oh, more
the,
wrestling.
the
today.
whole season. The whole season. It started with conditioning. We were in a co-op, so we went to another school because our wrestling team wasn't big enough. And then more running, a little bit of weightlifting, and then wrestling, throwing bodies around for an hour and a half, 2 hours, all while you're being mindful of your weight. You're probably hungry. Your body fat percent is trash, so you're always cold.
Yeah.
Like you're always tired, but it's figuring out how to perform under those conditions or in spite of those conditions. And one of the big aspects with it is it's the ability to move center of mass. A common phrase in football is where the head goes, the body follows. But I think in wrestling, like that is put on full display of being able to move somebody's center of mass, of being able to manipulate somebody's body, but also being able to anticipate pressure and kind of relaxing from it. So one of the drills sometimes that I would do is trying to wrestle with my eyes closed and just feeling off of like how they moved, where their pressure, trying to anticipate that next move, because knowing if they're trying to move away, they have to load up on a side, and you can feel the difference in tension and the shifting of that center of mass. So I think that was, reflecting back, that was something that I still use and helps me in trying to manipulate my center of mass now with different positions and different exercises. I think that was a huge contributor to it. And then football I took through JUCO, and I think a big thing.
Junior college.
Yeah, junior college. So not a 4-year college, like 2-year. So just a lower level. But yeah, took it through that, and I think a big aspect that I learned from football was what just happened doesn't matter. Like it's
mindset.
always. It's not your fault, but it is your problem. You have to deal with it. It doesn't matter if somebody
that's
on
life. Those are some fucking life lessons right there.
You were born.
Deal with it, motherfucker. You're here.
but that's really it. So the team I played on from 12 to 17 was the exact same guys.
Right.
Like the guys I played with 12, 13, 14, around that age, we all played on the same team through high school. Similar positions, starters through those years. So years and years of developed, and friendships not as close to, but in that team setting, the finish, the win, like the team is greater than the sum of its parts. So it doesn't matter if this guy on the line fucked up. Like we don't have time to focus on that. We have to move ahead because the next play is going. And I think that was an important lesson is, it doesn't matter what just happened. We need to focus forward. We can deal with shit afterwards, but we don't have time to get in arguments. We don't have time to fight. We need to focus. We need to put that in the back of our minds and not let it impact the rest of this down or the rest of the quarter or the game as a whole, because with football is such a momentum-based sport where in an instant with an interception, there can be the change of the tides and it completely reverse how a game is going. So those crucial moments are the difference between small little plays. It's where that, like a lot of times our coach would use bend, don't break. Like don't let huge things happen and then continue to happen. That if a large run or pass happens, it's like, okay, we can bend, we can take this and adjust, but we can't break down and we can't let the rest of this go to shit. I think those were the main ones. After that, dabbled in BJJ, gi, no gi, MMA a little bit. Those really just taught me that I don't like getting punched in the face.
Yeah. That's a good lesson to
It's
learn.
not for everyone.
Yeah, like learn the way not to learn boxing and kickboxing
Getting hit
with
in the
heavy
face.
weights. It's not a good time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's
like
not.
of all
Terrible
people.
life lesson.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of those personality traits in you in the way that you carry yourself today that you probably learned from your athletic past.
Just that.
So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, fuck yeah,
100%.
that's dope. What about you, Mac?
What did I do? I did cricket at a high level.
I did not know this about
Yeah,
you.
I played cricket for under 16 provincial, so like just under national level.
That is no
Yeah.
slouch, my friend.
Yeah,
That's
did
a
pretty
big
well.
deal.
Cricket, field hockey, played again under 18 provincial level as well.
No, I would not want you running at me with a wooden
No.
stick.
Yes,
Are you
I
kidding
made
me?
some people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I made men's Premier League at the age of 15. So I was playing against, and that was
Shit,
that was
really?
Yeah,
Grown-ass
because I just
men.
liked
That's
hurting
why I'm
people.
picking.
Yeah.
So
I
it
see
was-
that
it
in your
was that.
personality today as well.
That little bit of MMA, which I used to get stronger to beat up the old men or the men when I was playing as a young kid.
Yeah.
Everything that literally all my endeavors within sport was to be better at the main sport that I was focusing on.
Yeah.
Because I looked at it, I started playing at 15, and I was just getting, I was 70 kilograms. I was getting beaten across like on an AstroTurf. And I was like, well, I'm clearly not big enough and heavy enough, so I'm going to change that. And I did. That's pretty much what I landed up doing. And then out of school, moved into weightlifting, or Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting, and that was pretty much it, I guess. And then shooting.
Shooting,
I
yeah.
shot competitively.
Yeah, at a high level.
Yeah, pretty high level. Top 5 rifle in South Africa and top 5 handgun in South Africa.
Fuck, man. Mac is dangerous.
I did okay.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. What about you, Matt?
So I played hockey growing up, like very typical
Canadian.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, that was the one that everyone did. In Canada, the big thing was hockey in the winter and baseball in the summer.
Yeah.
Some of the other kids played soccer in the summer instead of baseball. They just fuck them.
Yeah.
Is your body type unusual for hockey? Because baseball, I see it. Like, you have the levers for baseball, but I'm not as familiar.
Honestly, like I can't say I'm in 100% in touch with what they do in pro hockey, right? Like I don't follow it very much. I know that when I was growing up and playing, it was such a widespread thing. Everyone played hockey,
That's
right?
fair.
So you got kids of all sizes. I played rep for one game, and then my ass got busted down off the team. I was like, damn, was I that bad? But like I know sort of noticed the same thing there, that everyone was just like, you'd have all sorts of different shapes and sizes, right? But I mean, I played defense, right? So at my height, I would have been an ideal height if I was not like 150 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
If it was a little bit heavier or a lot of it heavier, it would have been an ideal build.
250.
250.
That's a large human. I was thinking like 215.
No. Can you imagine Matt at 250? Dude, that's the perfect weight for him.
Massive.
Oh,
Massive.
dude, yeah, but that was just when I was a kid.
Perfect
I was,
weight for him.
It would be.
dude, I could do. The other one that would have been really helpful for was rugby. I played rugby
Oh,
for a
fuck
few
yeah.
years.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
I
played
started.
sevens, so.
I was in a weird life place at the time, and I figured I really needed something different.
You just wanted to hurt someone. Yeah.
It's what got me into lifting. Actually, was
That's sick,
playing rugby. And I was 25 years old, and I'd never played a contact sport in my life. Like all the hockey was non-contact, because that's the way it was done.
Yeah.
The way it was done in Canada. We weren't good enough for contact. So it's like, hey, how could this possibly go wrong? I've never played a contact sport before. And then
Just
suddenly,
physical harm.
I'm playing against the 20-year-old Polynesian 350-pound prop, right?
Yeah, that's how it
Yeah.
goes wrong. It goes wrong real quick.
Real fast.
Man.
Well, I think something important, though, with a contact sport like that is you can't half-ass it. If you
No.
half-ass it, you get hurt.
Yeah.
You die if you
Yeah.
half-ass it. Yeah, no.
They're
I
not
learned
half-assing when
and
they
it-
come at you.
Oh no, I learned that lesson very quickly, right? Like, yeah, no, you gotta try and dictate as many terms as you possibly can.
Fuck yeah, I like that sentence. Man, some hard dudes. Fuck
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
all right.
man, yeah. Some of the guys that you'd play with in there were like, you know what? I always found that the French were the toughest.
Yeah?
They were by far the toughest. I don't know what it is about them.
No.
No, okay, fuck.
You didn't play the South Africans.
Fuck,
That's what it was.
The problem is I didn't get to play with South Africans because they could never get visas
I
to
was gonna
visit
say,
Canada.
yeah, 'cause I think at
That's
that
a real
time
problem.
we were on like a travel ban or something like that.
Yeah.
Something happened in our country, we couldn't leave.
That's what they told you. They just didn't want you to leave.
Yeah, something like that. French are soft pussy.
I couldn't disagree more, man.
Oh,
They are tough as nails, and it goes back hundreds of years for them. They don't
All right,
put up
all right,
with
you two
shit.
fight this out right now.
Where's my water bottle?
Oh, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, I see a common theme here, though. But kind of my athletic history also, I grew up wrestling from when I was in grade school.
If you can't see, it would be
I know,
nice
it's
to
just
like
this one. Yeah,
zoom in
yeah,
on the
yeah.
cauliflower.
Can we get that?
That's the one.
Yeah, I used my head to hurt people is what I did.
A powerful weapon.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard, at least.
Yeah.
So I grew up wrestling. That actually got me into weightlifting, both in the sense of like weight training and weightlifting and to some degree,
Yep.
like back squat, front squat, clean. We never snatched or jerked. But that was my early introduction into that, probably in my freshman year of high school. So like whatever age you are, 13 years old. Right away, I loved being in the weight room more than I liked any other sport I played.
Agreed.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Immediately, yeah. And I was playing baseball at the time, too. I played baseball growing up. Wrestled a little bit in college, kind of got away from it because of how terrible of a sport it is. It just takes a fucking toll on your body, which is where I had my brief bodybuilding stint.
A pre-script heritage moment.
I know. It's
The
still
best part
hilarious
is
to me.
you're the only one who's done it.
I know. And that's hilarious to me
It's funny.
because everyone else is so much better versed in hypertrophy training, but I'm the one that did it.
So you're telling me that your bodybuilding career was a trauma response?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly. Yeah, exactly. I try and block it out of my memory. It's not conscious to me. I just see pictures and it all comes back.
Yes.
So that was a very brief stint. But from there, I did a little bit of jiu-jitsu. I dabbled. And I got into CrossFit. I competed in CrossFit for about 5 years. And I'm currently still, I don't know if we can say still, but then I got into competing in Olympic weightlifting at the national level. So a lot of it has all been around the mindset that these things elicit. And that's what it was for me, is that I needed somewhere to channel this competitive energy. And I just went from thing to thing to thing until I found the thing that kind of scratched that itch in the best way, which I think I've now found in Olympic weightlifting. It just took me a while to actually figure that out. But two things that you guys said that were that really resonate with me. One that you said there is about efficiency, right? In everything I did, I was never the best. I was never the fastest. I was never the strongest. I was never predisposed for success. But I fucking willed myself into a position where I was hard to beat.
Yep.
Right? I was never at the top, but I was always close because I worked hard. I focused on being as technically sound as I could and making sure that conditioning wasn't an issue. And I always put myself in the best position with the tools that I had to be successful, be as successful as possible. And that's something that has always carried over from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And then kind of taking this from you and definitely you, Mac. The other thing that also is very close to my heart, just from the way that I was raised, is I always wanted to be tough.
Yeah.
I want to be dangerous is what I want to be. I want to look dangerous enough that someone's not going to fuck with me. Like not to the fact that like I have to win the fight, but to the fact that they're not walking away without an injury.
Yeah, 100%. You going at it like it's not life or death from that perspective, but it's like if you're going to do this, I'm going to give you a real hard time.
Right. You're going to regret it
Yeah,
either
you're gonna
way,
regret it,
even if you
100%.
fuck me up.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, it's like the saying I always like, and I think it's expressed well in contact sports, is you might be better than me, but you're going to have to bleed for it.
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah. And that's the mindset I've taken into everything that I do. And even lifting now is like, I'm not the best lifter. I'm getting older. I'm not the strongest. And unless Mac has anything to do with it. Anyways.
Just a reemergence in the sport.
Let's go.
But I know for a damn fact, I'm stronger than most people I will encounter on a day-to-day basis.
100%.
And I'm more skilled in combat, hand-to-hand combat, than most people I'll encounter on a day-to-day basis. And even if they are more skilled than me, I can hold my own enough that it's going to be a problem for them too.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an aspect of sport is, especially contact sports, but hard, difficult sports, you're not a liability. Like, I think that's a skill set that you develop in a sport that you're not going to be liability because you're physically capable.
Right. Yeah. And that's always the goal, is to be physically capable.
Yeah. Which would be fucking hard to beat. That's it used to speak about what you were speaking about there. It's like I was never really skillful. I wasn't the most skillful on the field. I wasn't the most, I wasn't the best player on the field, but I was the most conditioned because I realized that I could outlast someone. If I could run fast, I could run harder than them. It's like I knew that I could beat them in the aspect that they would then essentially had one up on me. From that, it was going to be a real fucking hard time to beat me. Yeah. I was going to make you work for it more than anything you've ever worked, to the point where most people gave up. And most people do give up when it's hard. They're like, nah, fuck that. He's got my number. It's like, well, actually, no. I just outbeat you. I outplayed you in this game.
You don't have to be the best to win.
No.
You just need to not give the fuck up.
Yeah, 100%. Bleed. Work for it.
I love it. Yeah. I love where this went, and this is just the intro.
Yes.
Surprise!
Yes. This is not even the podcast yet. We did go into, what did we even go into in this podcast?
What it takes to be an athlete.
Yeah,
what it takes to be
This
ended up being a really good intro. See how genuinely surprised we are? So we talked about what it takes to be an athlete, training athletes, and maybe difference in mindset and kind of nuance, the level of nuance that matters between training Gen Pop and actual competitive athletes or high-level athletes. I thought there's a lot of really good takeaways from the podcast in terms of things you can apply with people that you're working with, no matter what their skill level is. Yeah. So there's a lot of benefit to that. Anything else to weigh in on the actual episode, guys, before we get to sponsors?
No, I think it was just a conversation that needs to be had around defining athleticism and what an athlete.
Yeah.
What is the tickingness of an athlete?
What separates them?
What
from
separates
the
them?
rest of us?
Correct. I think that's what we really go into from the side. It's cool
going in and defining some of those qualities.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really good episode here. Before we get into it, guys, make sure you check out the Prescript Collective. Something we've been kind of pushing a lot lately, just because we want to make sure that the value that this provides is being conveyed. We have hundreds of coaches from all over the world, all different disciplines, whether it's sports specific, whether it's general training, everything in between, that you can access on a 24-hour basis through our Discord channel. We have our Emerging Ideas lectures. Killian Hamilton does a really good job with that. We have a lot of really high quality information. Dwayne's been doing a couple of those. We have a lot of the Prescript staff has done them, and a lot of experts in their field, so people that are really well versed and are actually doing the damn thing on a daily basis. Get to hear how they do it and the procedures that they use to elicit success in their population. So that's really cool. Eric Bagheera is just the MVP of everything here at Prescript, but especially the collective does a great job breaking down research, telling you how to actually apply it, and allowing you to understand the weight that this holds, even though it may not be much in certain scenarios, maybe more in others, but actually allowing you to interpret that, digest that, and apply it. I think that's super important. We have everything in there from business channels. We have sports-specific, strength training, hypertrophy, team training, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you guys check that out. If you have any questions, hit us up, info@prescript.com. Just hit any of us, Instagram, hit us in the DM. We're here for you. We want to talk to you. If you're in the collective, just tag us. We'll respond to you. Love having conversations in there. They're always really good, fruitful conversations that we have. So check out the collective. Other than that, we have HD Muscle. Code RX'D, get 10% off your supplement order. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a pleasure, guys.
Chat next time.
Hit it, Lundy.
You're tuned in to RX Radio.
Yeah. 100%.
Pizza and waffles? Pizza and waffle cone ice cream?
Sounds amazing.
Health. Elite athletes.
With an F, yeah.
Is that like the paleo joke of or keto? It's like
I guess
share
I'm
a
not
picture of a stick of butter wrapped in bacon and be like, I'm taking my health into my own hands.
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing that the paleo craze did, I must be honest, is they just reinvented more recipes for just bacon to be added to everything.
Yeah.
I feel like that's all they really did. They just the armadillo? Yeah, became. Do you guys know what an armadillo is?
No.
The animal?
Yeah, okay. So
I know what the animal is.
So
Yeah.
but
I assumed you were talking about something different.
I am. I'm talking about food. So essentially, an armadillo is a variation of food that then gets wrapped in bacon. So that it creates the crispy outside protective layer. So like an armadillo, you can do like a fillet.
Yeah.
Oh
I'm so hungry. I'm so fucking hungry right now.
Getting worked up.
I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm getting a little bit of a semi over here. So you just go like,
I'm rock hard.
so you're just like, don't come near me. I got chlamydia apparently.
Vegas. This all happened in Vegas.
So just do the fillet and you wrap it in the bacon and then you put that on the brine. You cook it. Oh man.
So when did we reach peak bacon? Do you think, as a society?
We never have.
Really?
It's one of those things like we just keep trying to obtain it.
Was epic mealtime not enough?
I don't know what that is.
Really?
What is epic meal time?
Oh, it was huge back in like 2013.
Canada? So it's not wasn't that huge.
No, it was these dudes that just made these ridiculous meals with all sorts of like super fatty meat and wrapped
I do
up
remember
in
this.
bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like bacon
It was
strips.
like
and bacon
20,000
strips.
calories, and they try and eat it all.
Yeah. I thought that was peak bacon, but like you're proposing, like clearly this man or their work has not been effective enough because we are not at peak bacon. But what will be peak bacon?
When it's like, I don't know. I think it's one of those like infinite things. It doesn't exist, but it does exist.
The limit does not exist with
That's
bacon.
the word I was kind of going for. That's
I mean,
the phrase I was looking for.
It makes everything better. It's hard to find the limit whenever literally everything you add it to, it's just better.
Yeah,
I think it's a fair perspective to have.
I just remember this. We're going to bring this into elite athleticism at some stage, and I'm going to go with. For some reason, I went with Froning. Jeez, I can't speak Froning in my head. I remember watching like a before the games prep or some shit with him. Like I can't remember which one he was winning, and he was having a snack in between workout 3 and 4 of the day, and he literally took a packet of bacon, cut it open, and put it in the microwave, and just hit like 10 minutes, and essentially steamed or boiled the bacon in its juices, pulled it out, opened the rest of the bucket, and just sat there and ate it like a.
That's
and
hilarious.
I was like, what is going on
Jail.
here? Just like
straight to jail.
I mean, yes, but at the same time, no. I was like, okay, that's apparently what you need to do to be an athlete.
A lot of grease in
Yeah, I don't know
preparation
about
for
that.
performance.
I feel like carbs would have probably done better than that.
Yeah.
Conventional wisdom says.
Conventional
Yeah.
wisdom says your paleo for the what was that one? Zone. Did you ever get into the zone?
I learned about zone. I
remember
never
that,
got
right.
into it.
I did
See,
it
the thing
at
about
one
that's
stage.
too complex, right?
It was.
There's a lot of math involved.
Yeah, there was.
And once it gets past like serving sizes and grams, I'm out.
Yeah, it was like one block. You could have.
It was blocks. Yeah.
You got blocks.
Yeah.
So essentially, it was like you worked out your body weight, and you had like 20 blocks of protein, 15 blocks of carbs, and then so much fat would equate to a block, and then you would have a certain amount of blocks in a meal.
Yeah.
Essentially, it was a very complex way of doing macros.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's actually all it was.
it's
but
just
it was
proportions.
yeah.
Yeah. Proportions of fat to
It was-
carb
yeah,
to
it was,
protein.
it was wild,
Yeah, it's dumb.
stupid.
Numbers
Yeah,
work
I'm
too.
glad we made it past that.
Yeah, I'm
glad we made it past that.
So from the scale of like bacon to non-bacon, like we went from zone to just like what was the boys? What was it?
What?
Epic meals?
Epic
Epic
meals.
meal
That's
time,
it.
yeah.
Epic.
Yeah.
Anyways,
That's an interesting case, though, of like thinking about Rich Froning or people that have been at the top of their game for a long period of time. And there's always people that try and mimic the things that they see them doing.
Yeah.
When really the thing that gets them there is their fucking genetic
Genetic,
outlier, right? They would have made it there regardless of whatever the fuck they did.
Yeah.
But they're just doing things while being that genetic outlier, and people attribute the things that they're doing to them being this person that's maybe the greatest at
But that's
what they're doing that has ever existed.
that's the fitness industry in every aspect. It's like
Right.
let's look at supplements. Every big bodybuilder, like when you grew up and you looked at like your supplements and on the supplement container or whatever it was,
Yeah.
maybe not the right person. It's like the dude, not
Yeah,
that you're not.
that's
you know,
when I was bodybuilding.
Yeah.
You know?
The idea is like you looked at the supplement container and you're like, yes, I'm going to take this and be that jacked.
Exactly.
And that was the sell. That still is the sell. Let's be honest. Like that's how marketing works within the fitness industry.
Yeah.
They take someone who looks really, really good and just pair them with the product and be like, this product will make you look like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone believes it.
And it's fitness's oldest tradition too.
Yeah.
Like shout out Fortis Fitness. They got a nice little nice little poster board in one of the sides of the gym that has these old vintage ads, these old vintage fitness ads from like the 20s, 30s, and 40s, like stuff they would have printed in magazines. And it was like was like just as outlandish as what we do today, but with different stuff. It's really, really neat to see how the value systems changed with training over time.
Like the claims, I'll bet there's some outrageous claims on some of those things.
Oh, absurd claims. Yeah. It's like sprout muscle in 6 weeks, right?
Yeah. Sprout muscle.
Yeah, the verbs are important here. Sprout.
It's well, it's everything. It's the commercial, like the TV commercial things. They'd be doing do you remember the fucking ab thing that looked like a half moon?
Yeah.
That essentially was an assisted crunch. Or it was a piece of equipment that you could put your arms on while you were doing a crunch.
Oh, I remember that. That was all the rage in the 90s.
Man. Yeah, the thing was sick. Oh, I had one.
I had
one.
My friends' parents had it.
Yeah, 100%. I use that all the time.
And then you had to buy the one that did the lower abs because that was only upper abs. So you had to get.
That's how they get you.
That's how they got you. It's like you had to get both to then be able to get this. Or the one with all the bands and shit. There would always be some form of it. Actually, the original thing that I remember that comes to mind was like the original version of a TENS machine.
Oh my God.
That my aunt had. I think my aunt had it from it. That legit looked like you were getting wired up to something that was going to electrocute. Like the electric chair.
That's hilarious.
It came in a box, like an old suitcase box thing that I kid you wouldn't be able to put
ridiculous.
in a flight fucking overhead stove. That's how big it was. And you'd open it up and you'd have to crank all of the nails and the knobs and shit. And you'd have to stick all of these things all over, like on every muscle, and then it would shock you while you did a workout.
That's hilarious.
And you willingly hooked yourself up to this
straight up. I was like,
TENS machine, shooting electricity.
I was like,
that's how you're gonna get jacked.
I was like, this is how you get
work.
jacked.
Yeah, and look at this guy. It clearly worked. Fuck, why'd I have to sit next to him?
Fuck, I remember that. That was great. That's. But the idea is though, it always has been that these elite athletes, obviously, fame. They have to do some form of thing. There's a marketing campaign, whatever. But if you really start looking at every athlete, it's like, what do they do well?
I'm going to answer your question genuinely, is that they understand how to train.
Well, that's it. They just do that one thing really, really well all the time. It's genuine. And that one thing could be multiple things if it's CrossFit or whatever it is. But it's like the training aspect or their sport or their endeavor and whatever they've now created a career out of. It's like, they do that really, really well.
Yeah. And that's people that, if you talk to these athletes, like some of the best in the world, even like at the national level, we work with a lot of those, like shout out Patty B. He's the champ. He's the man. Yeah. Gotta love Patty B. But they understand training. And you can have, as a coach, you can have a conversation with that athlete around training, and you're on the same wavelength as them. There's a mutual understanding around the things that need to happen. There's not resistance. It's a conversation. It's two people coming together to find the path of least resistance towards the goal, right? It's not me trying to convince you that you need to do X, Y, and Z, which it may be with some, maybe general pop clients that come in with values and ideas of what training should be. It's someone that actually has that practical experience around training, and they understand the process, and they know that this is what they have to do. It's just a more deep understanding of training.
It's the deep understanding of training, and then it's them handing the reins to the person that they're asking to take them. There is the other side of this. I think it's like, from a coaching perspective, you get an athlete and they understand training, they understand their body. They can give you the feedback that you need as a coach.
Yes.
But what they truly understand is like, it's not my job to coach myself. Mm-hmm. It's your job. And that's why they've hired you as a coach from that perspective. It's like you're the outsiders, you're the outsider, you're the zoomed out perspective, and you're taking this in the direction it needs to go, and they fully trust you in that perspective. They are just there to do one thing and one thing only, and that's execute whatever you say. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I see in like the differentiating factor of like an athlete and someone who trains or does this, and they could do it at a high level, but that's like the distinguishing factor. It's like an athlete just fucking operates, just does what has been told, like sticks to program, gives you feedback if you need feedback from that side, and can almost like auto-regulate and help with the decision making really fast, but still understands, like, I'm doing what you told me to do.
Right. A big thing I see in those two different populations of a higher caliber athlete and someone that's more gen pop is restraint.
Yeah.
Is an athlete understands restraint. It's not about going as hard as you can all of the time, which is something that I've been in the CrossFit setting a lot, that a lot of people fucking do. But understanding that there's days where you need to push, and there's times even within that session where you might need to push, but it's not all out all the time. You need to restrain yourself, and there's times where you're working on increasing technique or movement quality or qualities outside of effort, right? Things that you need to do, working on range of motion or skill acquisition, things like that. They're going to lend towards the end goal, but it may not feel like you're working hard in the moment. So being able to practice that restraint and understand the utility of it and the time and place for it, I think that's something I've noticed with higher level athletes is they understand that and the value in that. When a lot of people that are more kind of general population just kind of working out, they don't really understand the utility of that.
Yeah. I think there's an aptitude of learning here that's at play as well. I see that's the one thing I hear consistently from Shallow whenever he talks about this is the fact that these guys are generally pretty, well, you can trust them to learn something very quickly if it involves like a competency or a skill, which they're not familiar, right? So they come out of the gate, it's like, okay, if they don't get it right the first time, they're probably going to get it right the second.
Yeah.
Right.
Which they don't make very many mistakes on the stuff they don't know about.
Yeah. And even if like you're saying, if they don't know it, they pick it up extremely fast. Their ability to self-correct, take in the information and the input of what they've done incorrectly and literally change it in a rep type scenario. It's like that differentiates like someone training at a high level to an athlete, like someone actually performing this at that extremely high level, I think.
Yeah, and it's that potential capacity that an athlete can adapt to something that, despite what it is, they can organize their body in a way to be able to execute it. I think that's one of the contributing factors of an athlete to a non-athlete or somebody at a lower level is that ability to adapt even with limitations or in spite of your own limitations, that you find a way to still perform, to get it done, to get to this spot, to execute. That's where it creates the difference, is the person that can execute despite these things, where we've all seen higher level athletes that they can't do basic things, but they've got to a level to be able to perform because they figured out how to manipulate their body in a way to still be able to execute. That despite I have this limitation, that I can still perform. I can still get around this because I understand how my body works. I understand how to manipulate it, where oftentimes you can have two people, a high level athlete, a gen pop, neither of them can perform lunges well. One can't even take a step, and the athlete's going to figure out a way to manipulate their body to be able to perform. And in that performance or the execution on the field or on the turf or court, whatever it may be, it's despite that they can still do whatever the work is. Whereas there's such a large gap between an athlete that can do that and everyone else.
Yeah, that's true. There's the quote that the best athletes are the best compensators, and it's 100% true. You see some of the best athletes, they don't give a fuck about biomechanics.
No.
And there's so much dick sucking that goes on the internet about biomechanics that you can clearly infer that these people know nothing about training athletes, because athletes don't go by biomechanics. They get the job done, right? And they can find a way to compensate and use their body in a way to manipulate their athleticism to check the box of whatever that is. If it's the over-the-shoulder catch, if it's hitting a baseball, throwing a baseball, these things that are very kind of complex, finite tasks, they do these things. They understand how to do these things. But then there's no consideration about, is this biomechanically sound movement? And that's something you'll see with a lot of these people, that they get to the top or they get to their position that they're in despite the way that they move. And then that leaves opportunity if you can clean up some of those movements, or if you can teach them to be in more biomechanically sound positions while they're in the gym, then that's just going to give them a buffer of capacity where maybe it will allow them to do the thing that they're doing that's not biomechanically sound for longer.
Well, I think that's the thing with a good coach. They recognize that, and they can bring it in, they can merge it to not change what they're doing, because clearly what they've done has got them to the, the level that they're at. It's understanding, hey, I need to take what you're doing and I just need to give you a little bit more room. I need to give you a little bit more ability, that whenever we're working outside of ideal positions, it's not going to break you. That I give you more options as an athlete to be able to move, be able to perform. Whereas very easily you can see a coach that ego starts to get in the way, and it's like, no, I want to change your way.
Yeah.
Like nobody would look at Usain Bolt just before everything and be like, yeah, you're going to be the fastest person in the world. It takes the coach that sees them and they're like, I'm going to have you do the things that you're good at, and I'm just going to build the abilities where you're lacking or where you're limited, so you have those options available and you can use those whenever you're ready. I kind of think of like the same thing in MMA. It's a fighter that has a lot of tools that they can use when they need to. It's giving them the tools and actually letting them do the work with it, because that's who they are. That's what they can do, is they're very good at using those tools. They just need some tools, and it's not taking something away to say you can only use this. It's, okay, you're really, really good at this. Let me give you a couple of other things, so whenever you need to call upon these, you have the knowledge or you have the stability to hold positions or get in and out of positions.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think an important point, which you brought up, which Matt kind of spoke on earlier, is the idea of a coach kind of trying to change everything that someone's doing that's already working. And it comes down to the idea of trust, right? Is there needs to be trust within that process. And if you kind of completely derail what someone's doing, it breaks that trust. There's no secret to this stuff. Everything that we do, it applies to literally every human on this earth. There's just going to be special considerations around anatomy of that specific person when it comes to like the biomechanics side of things. And then if you can take these concepts and you can apply them in a way where you're not deviating very much from what an athlete's been doing that is working, but you can add one or two things that are going to allow them to get into better positions or maybe access more range of motion, it's going to resonate in other areas of their training. And that's how you start to buy trust, is you start to gain that relationship with an athlete that, okay, these things that this person told me are working and I'm feeling a difference. And once you get that buy-in, then that's where you really get that good coach-athlete relationship.
Yeah, I look at it as just like you creating a longer lifespan of the athlete is usually what we land up doing. It's like you're not trying to make them better at their sport necessarily. You're trying to make them better at their ability to do the things or the positions that they're going to get in that's going to get them injured to not be able to do their sport. And that's when you work with an athlete, that's what it is. You're painting the borders, or you're just extending the range that they can get into that they don't generally would find themselves in, so that when they do find themselves in there, they don't blow an ACL, they don't fucking get mashed up, or as long as it's a non-contact injury from that side. That's the problem. Everyone doubles down on trying to better the sport by doing that in the gym, where like that's the wrong way to think about it. It's what outskirts of the performance do they not necessarily need to be in, but if they got into that range, how can I keep them safe there, is how I look at it from that athlete, if we're talking true athlete perspective, I think.
Well, and I think in context, that's where we see a differentiation of injury prevention, somebody that takes that approach, and injury risk management. Like, hey, let's reduce the risk, because injuries happen. Like, it's chaos. It's physical activity. There's always potential for it. So to think that I'm going to do this and that automatically limits the injury's not going to happen because we do this thing. There's examples out there that it happens. Even like non-contact, contact, you can't control those variables. But looking at that approach of injury risk management, let's reduce the risk. Let's make better choices. So whenever the athlete's in a position where they have to perform, they can. That we're not putting them in vulnerable positions, in uncontrolled situations, whenever we have options that we can be more precise in the exercise that we're doing, in the order of operation, and how we're managing stress around practices, around game time and performance time. That I think that's really where a coach can help an athlete go to the next level, that they already have the potential. It's just somebody outside that's helping manage and being thoughtful of all these other considerations.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think stress management, it boils down to kind of a couple of different things. One of them is actual like physical stressors on the body.
Yeah.
And that comes down to assessment is like you were saying, is someone becomes the shape of their sport. Right? If you can look at that person, look at the shape of the sport, and be able to assess, okay, these are going to be points that they're stressing structure, or they're overstressing the functional tissue in an area. You can start to predict ways that might break down, that movement pattern might break down. And then, like you were saying, Mac, is if you can get them to paint the edges of that, or, more simply put, just get into positions in the gym that they're not in on the field, that can be stress management in itself, right? If I rotate right to left in my sport all day, and then I get you in the gym like, hey, let's get you to rotate the other way. You're just buffering their capacity to now rotate. You're now, as opposed to just being stuck in this pattern of rotating right to left, you're starting them from a more neutral starting point so that they can rotate through a more full range of motion, as opposed to just breaking down this one pattern.
The key there, though, is like you're not changing the fact that they rotate only from right to left. We're just bringing in those, because if you stop them from rotating right to left, they're going to be shit at their sport.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get fired, because your job as a coach and that is to make them better at their sport.
Performance is king.
Yeah, performance is proxy. Like, that's the key out of all of this. Like, find ways to keep them performing and keep them being good and superhuman in what they do, but with the added risk management side on it. I think that's biomechanics.
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely.
That's the true biomechanics, not this fucking lat pull down bullshit that goes on. Like, I think the other side of that is like, let's give credit where credit's due. Maybe like I'll try and talk from the other side where this biomechanics gets thrown in. I think a lot of people look at it as an athlete in a context of hypertrophy.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to laugh.
No, but
it's kind of a funny thought. Right?
That's what I think people think. They go biomechanics and they go athlete, and they're talking about bodybuilding, and they're talking about physique competitor from that side.
Yeah.
Where actually it's like, no offense, I train some fucking bodybuilders. It's not an athlete. You're not an athlete. It's not. You're not.
From a strength and conditioning perspective, I'm way more impressed by the person who can keep like a female soccer player's knee from exploding on the field than someone who can train a bodybuilder. And I don't mean to throw shade on bodybuilders.
We're not. But that's true athleticism and being like a strength and conditioning coach, not just a fucking. Yeah. But that's it. Like, and I think maybe that's where the context or the disconnect has kind of been allowed to happen. No one's ever put their hand up and be like, hey, we're not talking about bodybuilders. We're actually talking about we're talking about bodybuilders. We're not talking about athletes. Everyone's just been like, I'll keep quiet because this apparently seems to be working in footy shortened position of the lat and the iliac crest. And this, fuck that. I don't really give a shit. It's like, let's go train. That's worked for how many years? Look at the top bodybuilders that we have around. They do the thing. And people have just sprinkled this like biomechanics aspect to it as load management, and everyone's forgotten like that's actually what's happening in this. We're just stopping them from overloading themselves and accruing too much fatigue, and maybe overloading some of the functional tissue where they would generally get injured in the past. All they've done is just made the load significantly less, because we've gone from doing a lat pull down bilaterally with a full stack to a single arm, which means I do a quarter of the stack.
And I think one of the biggest factors why those conversations can get blended, because sometimes it's lost, one of the biggest contributing factors to athleticism is the ability to react to variables. Yeah. What's never happening on the state, like everything's very, very controlled. If things aren't controlled, if you're training somebody for hypertrophy or in a bodybuilding setting, you as a coach control things.
Correct.
You don't want variability. You don't want chaos. But that's exactly what sports are. That's what athleticism is here's something, you have to react to it. If you can figure it out, you're probably a better athlete. If you can't, no touchdown, no score, anything like that. Like, it essentially, if we'd want to make bodybuilding more athletic, soap up the stage. Be like, good luck on your poses.
That sounds hilarious.
react to this. You're an
imagine those
athlete now.
Huge humans just falling. Oh, it'd be so funny to watch.
Do they have to keep all of the grease on still?
Yeah.
It's just chaos.
Everything. The only variable we're changing, we're soaping the stage. Do everything that you usually do. Now you're an athlete. But it's having to respond to that variability that people lose sight of in that performance. Yeah, they're both performing, but like that's what gets people behind it is the variability, the chaos, the unknown. That's why like betting on something, because you don't know what the outcome is. Whereas like if everything's so controlled, it's okay, let's see what 3 judges decide this is, instead of utter chaos that is a sporting event.
Yeah, that's what you have to train for. There's no other choice. That's all you can train for.
Well, and I think that's the differentiating factor between like athletes and then people who train. And I'm not saying that bodybuilders at the top level aren't athletes. They're just not athletic. Maybe that's the difference. The differentiating factor is like they're athletes. They're just not athletic. Their pursuit is not in an athleticism base.
It's a simple pursuit done with a lot of effort. Like a ton of effort.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, and what, to try to bring in some of that conversation, like it's the point of the ability to get in and out of positions. Like you're very good at being in one position, but we could probably look at some of the top performers in bodybuilding. It's their ability to get in and out of position that allows them to train through different ranges of motion or have some advantages over their competition. And I know that's something that you and I have talked about, Mac, that you look at is their poses.
Yeah.
And their ability to get in and out of posing positions, or the limitations in that, like that is an attribute that carries over and can be trained. Right. Despite what the sport is, despite what the pursuit is, it's that ability to not just get into a position, but the ability to control getting in and out of position. Like that's where it gives you options, essentially.
Well, that is the sport. Posing is the sport of bodybuilding. If you like, that's the way I kind of look at it. So, and what you're referring to is like, if you can't pose and we can't get into those positions that is necessary, you're going to be really shit at your sport. That's like not being able to get the catch overhead. It's like if you're just stuck here. So it is still training it maybe in a certain way. It's just presented differently, I guess, is what you've somehow changed my mind on my own.
Well, I think it's the same thing. It's just the consideration of like if we're looking at like defining this as a sport or as a coach, like if we're trying to qualify what athleticism is, one of the attributes I'd say is the ability to react to changing environments or variability. Whereas whenever we start taking that out, there's still attributes that run across, and that's part of the biomechanical conversation that we were having, like the ability to get in and out of positions. Same thing with corrective exercise. Like corrective exercise is getting in appropriate positions. If you need corrective exercise, it's because you're operating in poor positions or you're operating in leverages or loads that are becoming detrimental to you. So the ability to get into appropriate positions is all we're really trying to do. It's hard to sell get in good positions.
Yeah, it's difficult to be like, your positions are shit. Let's try and change it. The whole family's here.
Yeah, all the animals.
All the animals. Yeah. Don't know where that went.
I don't know. It went very deep into the bodybuilding. It kind of lost me a little bit.
It's the soap on the stage. I threw all of you.
The soap on the stage threw me off.
Did you have flashbacks of your taint being made?
Yeah, they're never good.
Hear that story.
Yeah, I feel very used when I think of it. But I think part of that is that there is an athletic aspect to it, right? Is that people that are going to be high performers in one sport, I think would be high performers in whatever sport you put them in, right?
Yeah.
Their anatomy and their predisposition based off of what their body shapes are, I think that's going to choose their sport for them, that they'll be the highest performer at. But I still think that the abilities that lend to being a high-level performer in any athletic endeavor overlap with doing that in another athletic endeavor.
I hate to say it, but I also would throw like the mindset aspect is in that.
How so?
And when I say mindset, maybe it's also just down to the original thing that this topic came up with. It's like they just execute.
Right.
They literally just get it done. Like top level bodybuilders eat the fucking food. They don't sway from it. They hit their macros. They hit their diet. They hit their training sessions. They hit their numbers. Top level Olympic weightlifters, they come in, they do their warm-ups, they do their program, they hit their fucking numbers, they hit their, like, it's all the same if you take the sports away and you just look at the individuals, like the mindset of the individual is the same. Like, and that's the differentiating factor of an athlete versus a gen pop or even like an advanced level trainee. It's like a lot of them, their livelihood doesn't necessarily depend on it to a certain degree, but it's like they're not invested at the rate that these guys are, or these athletes are, I think.
Right. When failure is not an option, people are going to execute.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
If you're not going to be able to make the mortgage payment if you don't catch the football, that's a pretty good motivator to do the things that are going to allow you to catch the football.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in part of that, I also think of when we're talking about the mindset, like the disassociation. It can be both mental and physical. Your ability to disassociate position. Whenever my arm goes overhead, that doesn't mean that my rib cage has to go with it. I have the ability to disassociate here that is going to allow me to get in positions, but also with high-performing athletes, they have that disassociation despite what's going on. They can flip the switch. Everything else goes off. Yeah. It's game time. It's time to show up. And that's a huge contributing factor, is that ability to disassociate and focus in on the performances now. Like you've heard tons of stories of, like look at Michael Jordan, the flu story. Whether that is in association to actually partying or actually the flu, but the ability to perform. Go to MMA. John Jones going on a coke bender the night before, still coming out and being one of the best athletes in the world. Like, it's in spite of everything that they have that switch.
You can't mention those people without mentioning Doc Ellis, the acid no-hitter for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
What?
Oh,
I've never heard of
Heard
this.
this story? I hope I got the name right. Doc Ellis?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, he dropped a bunch of acid. So supposedly,
Allegedly,
the legend says that he dropped a bunch of acid the day that he was scheduled to start a game, and because he forgot that he was supposed to start the game. So
hey, okay, cool.
Yeah. So apparently he just starts, tripping absolute balls, and then gets the call. It's like, hey, where are you? We've got to play whoever today, right? I think the outcome was a no-hitter. I don't think it was a perfect game, but it was a no-hitter. So yeah, he no-hit whoever they were facing that day. And it was just an incredible story that he told afterwards, that he was just absolutely tripping the entire game. Like,
That's so wild.
He's seeing hallucinations of like the umpire as a cobra, right? And then there's the ball is changing sizes. Like, sometimes it's as big as a softball, and sometimes it's like a tiny crumb.
Yo.
Right?
I think acid would make baseball a lot more entertaining.
As a spectator, or
as anyone involved.
Oh my god.
Dude. Well, I call that, it's BMT, your big match temperament. It's the ability to switch on. You see it in weightlifters. You know a weightlifter is really good when their first snatch on platform, they don't underpull. That's it. What do we know? It happens every single time you get on platform. Your first snatch, they always underpull. They short pull. It's like a good athlete, someone who knows how to handle the shit. Yeah. Even at an intermediate level, you'll see it. They'll fucking overpull, and you're like, oh, he's got it, or she's got it, or something like that.
That's so true.
That's what I look for. And there's the telltale signs. It's the athlete being able to, pick up on a movement within 1 to 2 reps and learn really fast. It's the watching the BMT. It's the person who, instead of getting hyped up, I always laugh at this, like in a powerlifting setting or even the weightlifting settings, like the guy's getting like super amped and hyped up and like full of like running around, like getting G'd up, and then you've got the person just sitting in the corner listening to music, just like happy, just getting on the barbell. So it's like, you understand there's a time and place for the aggression to go on. There's controlled aggression that needs to be there in these spaces.
That's so true. Like, an athlete, a great athlete is someone that can execute under pressure.
Yeah.
Right?
Every
I think
single time.
Basketball is a really good example of that. You see, like, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, like Kobe. Those are the people that, when they need to do it, they'll get it done. And that's a fucking athlete.
Yeah. Sweet.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's a fucking athlete.
Did we do it? Yeah.
We did it.
Cool.
Done.